Welcome, everyone, to the Country Club Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Leo McMahon. Today, our guest is Neil Tucker. Neil is the co-founder of Design Republic, one of the top architectural design firms in the world. Welcome, Neil.
Wow, thank you, Leo. What an intro. I feel important.
So, since I said in the world, I'd like you to start off with your ability to speak Italian
Ah,
and how that worked out to your advantage, because I think it's a pretty good story.
yeah, well, it's funny. I guess for anyone watching, I'm an architect in New York City. I've had my whole career here, 32 years, I guess at this point, or more than that probably. And have done a lot of work within New York, and then it started to expand outside of New York, and I got myself into a niche of architecture where I design studios, TV studios, recording studios. Done a bunch of entertainment shows like for Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert, Conan O'Brien. So I've been fortunate from that perspective, and that working with those very creative people, it's very cool because architecture is a creative outlet, and then working with other creatives to make very cool shows and environments that you see on TV. It's pretty cool. It had led me to a pretty big project for Telemundo, which is in Miami, South Miami or South Florida. And during that project, there was a visit which I happened to have missed. But there were two priests that toured the facility from the Vatican who were interested in meeting an architect or an architecture firm, an American firm, that would be able to help them design a newsroom for the Holy Father. So I had missed that, and unfortunately, I sent them my regret note, and they. So anyway, we ended up. They went back to Italy, and they reached out to me to see if we could do a Zoom meeting, just like we're doing now. And I said, of course, we could do that. And what I now know, I know the two priests very well now. They've become very dear friends. But at the time, I didn't know this, but one was always notoriously late to every meeting. And then the other one, who was on time, really couldn't speak English very well. So he joins the call first. And his name is Monsignor Lucio, and wonderful man, very smart scholar, and when you're with him, he can speak English well enough to converse, but it's definitely not his first language. So he's on the Zoom meeting, and he said, "Oh, hi, how are you? Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in New York City." And he said, "Oh," I said, "And where are you?" He says, "I'm in the Vatican City." I said, "Wow." I said, "Are you near St. Peter's?" And he was so excited, he took his laptop and held it out the window to show me the dome of St. Peter's, and which was just amazing. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm here in New York. I'm very close to St. Patrick's Cathedral," and I held my laptop to my window to show him that, and that was wonderful. So we continued to make some small talk about architecture, about different things. And then while we were waiting for Father Manny, was the other priest who still hadn't joined. We're probably 10 or 15 minutes into it. And he said, so Neil, have you ever come to Italy? Have you ever been to Rome? Have you ever toured in Italy? And with his accent and broken English, and I got lost in the moment, I answered him actually almost without realizing it in Italian. and just for fun, I'll say, so I think I said something along the lines of, "Sì, ho abitato a Firenze per un anno, mentre lì ho abitato con una famiglia italiana." And as I'm speaking to him, Leo, he starts going like this, like that. And I knew I had the job. I got the project. So, and it was a fun story because it was, they are now both priests, and Father Manny finally did join the Zoom meeting. They're both dear friends, and I stay in touch with them, and hopefully I'll continue to do some work with them at the
Nice.
Vatican. Yeah, very nice people.
what made you learn Italian anyway?
So I don't look it, but part of my family's Irish. So my grandparents came from Ireland, and then on my mom's side from Italy. So she never really spoke Italian growing up. She didn't learn it very well. But I grew up hearing Italian spoken around me, and so I had it was a cool upbringing because I had a very Irish half, which I felt very comfortable in, but I also had the very Italian side as well. So just being around Italian was great. I always wanted to learn it, but I didn't. In high school, I took French for some reason, which I did okay with. But part of my architecture program, I went to Syracuse University School of Architecture. So they had a program in Florence, and I went to, and it was a year. And when I was there, and this is what I said in Italian, but I said I live with an Italian family, and I had to speak with them every day. I learned Italian very quickly there. And then for some reason, after I left, I was there for about a year. I retained a good amount of it. And I would take Italian lessons here and there, over the years to keep it fresh. So because I did enjoy speaking it. There's not a lot of people here to speak with, but there's
Right.
but I do find opportunities here and there. But for the past 3 years, I've been taking Italian lessons once a week with a teacher that lives in Florence. She doesn't speak any English at all, which for me was perfect. And it was really just something I wanted to do just for myself. There's no real business advantage unless maybe I work again with the Vatican, but there's no real need to speak Italian per se.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, knowing a little bit about your story, one thing that impressed me was that Telemundo project. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, Telemundo. Yeah, it was cool to be a part of that. I still work with them. Actually, we're still doing projects here and there with them. We call them day two projects, but Telemundo, it's a very big facility, and for people that might not know, what you see on television is only a fraction, really, of the process, the workflow, the building, if you will, that puts the productions out. So you have a studio, but outside of the studio, you'll also have control rooms, edit rooms, production offices, news production teams, and then you get all the way out into other facets of what you might expect to see in an office space. The buildings are often made to be able to go off the grid, meaning that they have full generator power. They're 24/7 operations. Because there's federal mandates that especially if they're a news organization, there's a federal mandate that they do stay on the air so that during an emergency, they can still get announcements out
Now,
to keep people safe.
Is Telemundo the biggest Spanish-speaking network in the world, or close to it, or?
It has to be. I mean, there's Univision as well.
Okay.
But I think Telemundo does have multiple locations throughout Latin America. The facility, though, in Miami, I believe far exceeds the size of its equivalent Univision station. So the single building that we designed and built I think it's 563,000 square feet of space interior, and then there's two additional support buildings, each about 90,000 square feet each. So it's a pretty big complex. And as far as projects go, that's a scale that you don't see that often. But that said, for me, it was probably the third or fourth in a series of projects, starting with MSNBC was similarly scaled. CNBC, we also designed. That was a pretty big project. So this was sort of in the line of these type of very big projects with multiple studios. And in the case of Telemundo, they have telenovela programming, which is essentially soap operas, right? So they had two different workflows there. They had news, sports on the television side, and then they had these soap operas, which were very popular and a big revenue producer for them as well. But the people were great to work with. They're really, they're excellent at what they do. I work with the folks at Telemundo and NBC Universal with a fair regularity, and they're top notch organization. I have to say, the way they run, the way they spend for capital improvements, building new buildings or renovating. They always do a really great job.
Now, I flew out of Miami in July of 2023, and I've been to Miami quite a bit. I couldn't believe the construction going on in Miami. I mean, it was incredible.
It is. It is incredible. And it's going out. And from my perspective too, which is surprising, it seems like they're going more into what I thought was the Everglade area, but yeah, they're developing and building and building. They used a lot of the land there for fill for other projects where they would dig it out, and then that land, because it's now sunken, become almost like lakes, these big rectangular lakes, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But they're backfilling them in again with new fill and building buildings on top of those.
Wow.
So they're reclaiming that land. Yeah.
So the other story that I always got a kick out of was the Ed Sullivan Theater that you worked on. Can you
Yeah.
give us a little story about that?
Yeah, that was interesting. I guess when you get into this sort of niche that I'm in for um, it's media and entertainment projects. So I had done a couple actually of the Tonight shows, one for Conan O'Brien, a little bit of work for Jay Leno, but then the biggest one was the one for Jimmy Fallon here in New York, and they all kind of know each other, believe it or not. I think Jimmy Fallon knows Stephen Colbert, they know Jimmy Kimmel, and they actually do talk. And so my name, I guess, uh, got into the ear of I think Stephen and CBS and the folks, and those folks at CBS I've worked with for quite some time as well. So we put in a proposal for the project and ultimately did win it. The great part of that project is that it's the building itself, the theater is historic, of course, and it's beautiful. It really is a beautiful theater, now restored, of course. So we redesigned the theater, restored it to its landmark status. We designed a new marquee because the original marquee was long gone. So we designed a marquee, actually working directly with Stephen and trying to share what might be inside before as an audience member, you look at the marquee. So anybody that happens to be in New York and you see the marquee, you'll see the type of architecture, sort of hints of like a little preamble to what you'll experience when you're inside the theater. And so the theater is fully restored. There's an element in the center of it called the Great Lantern, which is now fully lit and restored. The stage that the Beatles performed on for the first
Wow.
time
Wow.
is completely restored. And then the areas you don't see, production offices, as well as all of the dressing rooms in the Fly House area. Um, it really all contributes to their ability to put on a great show. And they've always been able to put on a great show. But when you do a really good design with your clients, it actually helps them do what they do even better, right? So it was a privilege, really, and an honor to work with Stephen, with the whole team, the executive producers there, and very cool project.
So Stephen Colbert, did he get pretty hands on in the project?
Very, yeah, yeah. In fact, the office I'm sitting in here in my office, he preferred to meet with us here in this office with 3 or 4 other people, and it's a fairly small office. But when they're in their creative mode, when they're writing and they're going over material and jokes and monologues, that's how they work. They get in a writer's office, they all cram in there. They seem to prefer it. They have, chase lounge type chairs in there, and he'll sit with his leg over it. He was funny to me because he would often lay down on things or stand on furniture. That was like I guess his way to kind of loosen up a little bit. So I have a couple of pictures of him laying on radiators or tables. But really he's a really great guy though, and so is Jimmy Fallon, so was Conan O'Brien. They were really a pleasure to work with. They were all three of them in those three cases were very involved in the
Interesting.
work. Yeah,
So
yeah,
they're
really
good
great
people,
people.
is what you were saying. You're saying.
They're good people. Yeah, they really
Nice,
are, and they care about their staff. You know,
nice.
they realize that they're in a real way they're the living brand, right? So it's almost their job to be funny, and it's very easy to get lost in that. I think where the pressure of that. But if they're successful at what they do, there's 200 people on each one of those shows or more. That are able to make a living. So it's pretty cool. It's
Right.
pretty cool seeing what they do. Yeah.
So you play golf, Neil. When did you start playing golf anyway? How old were you?
I'm a late starter, I think, relatively. I think I started, it was probably in my late 20s. I
Really?
know I was married, and I remember it actually came out of one of my partners at one of my early firms I became a partner at. And this is probably before I became a partner. Um, he mentioned to me almost in passing, he said, Neil, you should take up golf. Now I had started to bring in business and what have you, which is why he was saying that. Of course, I didn't catch on, and I just said, "Oh yeah, I thought about it maybe someday." He's like, "No, no, you should play golf." I was like, "Yeah, maybe I'll take it up." He said, "No, you're not hearing me.
You
You
must play
should
golf.
play golf, right?" So because, and the point being that when you play golf, you get to meet somebody. But I also think what's interesting to me about golf is that you get to know somebody over the span of the 3.5, 4.5 hours that you're playing, and you get to see how somebody deals with adversity, how they deal with success, challenge, right? You see how they really kind of deal with things when it's just them. There's nobody, no parachute. There's nobody to help you when you're playing golf. It's you against the course, right? So you get to see how people really are. And I think at the end of that, you get a good sense of who somebody is. And that's, for me, has
Absolutely.
always been I guess the big, magnetism for me of golf is to just, to see people around a common passion. I'm very passionate about golf, and the people that I play with are as well. And you really do get to know them sort of on a deeper level, probably more quickly than you might have an opportunity to do with meeting somebody at a conference room or at a business function, that kind of a thing. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
the net result of that is that at the end of a round of golf with somebody, if you might want to work with them. So if it is a potential client, potential architect situation, in my case anyway, at the end of a round of golf, if you could work well with somebody, and I think that's the business end of it, and that's why it's such a great tool for
what what
bringing in new
what's your
projects.
handicap anyway?
So right now my index is at 10.0 flat. That's how I ended the season here, which is, I'm in the Northeast, so the season's over for the moment, and I joined a new club. It's Wheatley Hills, which is amazing, and the membership is just it's a fraternity, a camaraderie there that I haven't really seen. I was at Lawrence, that's where you and I met, which also had a great group of people, guys, and camaraderie. But the folks at Wheatley have really been very welcoming to me, and they've been really good. But the one thing that I've noticed with all of them is that they're all really, really good golfers, no matter what their level. Sneaky good too. So I really felt like it pushed me to get a little bit better, and I still hope to get, even better still before I go the other way and I can't improve anymore. So, but I
Yeah,
enjoy it.
for somebody who took the game up in their late 20s, you have a great golf swing. I mean, a
Ah,
really good golf swing. I
means a
guess that
lot coming from you, Leo. Thank you.
I guess that's the architect in you. You built a nice
Maybe.
swing. Uh, I met you. It was after Hurricane Sandy because I really
Yes.
didn't know who the heck you were up until Hurricane Sandy, and I slept in the clubhouse the night of Hurricane Sandy with the golf course superintendent. We were trying to protect the building. I don't know what the hell thought we were going to do, but the it was up to like 6 feet. The water was 6 feet in the clubhouse, or four to 6 feet. And that afternoon, I'm sitting in my office with my head in my hands, and you come walking in. What's the matter, Leo? I said, I said, this is a total disaster here. Everything was under 4 to 6 feet of water. Everything, all of our equipment, our buildings, the golf course,
Yeah, yeah,
everything. So he says, Leo, I'll do whatever you can to help you. And that was incredible. I mean, and you and your partner Vincent, you walked me through the whole process. You were there more than our employees, to be honest with you. And I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
meetings on the weekends, meetings at 12 o'clock at night after you guys already put in a day's work in Manhattan. Uh, I remember going to your office and I'm thinking, this is just Neil and Vincent, you know, I don't know of any architect company, right? And I go in, it was on Park Avenue and 57th Street, I think.
Right, that's right.
And we go up the elevator and walk down a hall, and the door opens up, and it looked like the Washington Post newsroom in there. There was people everywhere,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was really impressive. You know, it was like I just thought it was you two, and that was the end of it. But there was like 40 people working in this place. It looked like.
Exactly.
Uh, but you guys really took care of us, and I'll never forget it. I mean, what you guys did was incredible. I mean, it was really
Oh,
nice of
thank
you
you,
to do
Leo.
what you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, thank you.
And I
Yeah,
consider you and Vincent good friends today, and it's unbelievable. I learned lessons from both of you of how giving you were. You know, it was remarkable.
well, it was, it was a pleasure to help out, and I felt at the time, I remember, and Vincent actually at that time was also a member, and
Right.
and as members, we felt, of course, we would help. If we had skill sets that could help bring that club back, that's what we did.
It was
So we
unbelievable
helped out.
the effort you guys put in.
And my house actually had been flooded at that, with the same storm. So I was dealing with that as well at the same time. It was good times, I tell you.
Oh yeah,
But you
that
know
was a
what?
lot of fun.
Nobody got hurt. Nobody was injured. So,
Yeah, it
buildings
was
can be
amazing
rebuilt.
as a general manager of a club how the membership pitched in, how the employees pitched in. It was actually it was a good time for some reason. I don't know why, but everybody pitched in and got together wherever you went. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I remember going to Manhattan one time, and I was at a restaurant, and then where are you from? I said I'm from Long Beach, New York. Your meal's on us. You know, like
Wow.
I couldn't pay for anything. I was from Long Beach. They knew how badly Long Beach got hit by the storm.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's great. That's a great story. Yeah. I never left my house because both of my cars floated away.
Yeah,
I
mine too.
had
My
to,
car too.
when I did go to Lawrence to help out with the club, Vincent would pick me up. He didn't get the flood at his house. So, but I had no cars. So,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
good
unbelievable.
times.
Uh, so you've redesigned Lawrence's clubhouse under great pressure. I think the storm hit like November 1st, and we were kind of open for business April 1st. You know, and
Yeah,
it was unbelievable.
yeah. Never missed a beat.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and you're a golfer, and Vincent's a golfer. I think a couple of other your partners are golfers. So, how many clubhouses have you been involved with as a firm? Not that you're looking for to do clubhouses at country clubs, but how many have you done?
It's really, I think, we would love to pursue it. I think as sort of a practice sector. But we have other practice sectors like mine being media and entertainment. We do high end luxury retail and also higher end corporate interiors for a lot of clients that you would recognize the name. Clubhouse design is a niche of hospitality, which we're very good at, but we haven't pursued aggressively. I have to admit. So we did Lost City with you.
Right.
which was great. You know, and it was nice working with the board of directors there, and and you have people that are, while they're in retirement, they had their own businesses. They were all very much sort of leaders, I guess, in their time. So that there was also a lot of opinions to navigate, to get to a solution. But I think in the end, Lost City came out very well. I think and hopefully the current membership appreciates the work that you did, and that we were able to do with you.
So is that typical on a job? Because I got to see firsthand at Lost City, there was a lot of opinions, and you had to be very diplomatic in listening to
Yeah.
everybody. Does that happen in all your jobs?
I guess so. I never really thought about it, but I think I guess I've been told, I've heard my partners also receive, very nice compliments that they're easy to work with. They do listen. I think there are a lot of my brethren architects that, for whatever reason, maybe ego or status, I guess they want to design what they want to design, and they try to get their clients to build it, even if it might not be what the client might actually want. But I think our style of architecture is to really our clients know kind of what they would like to achieve, right? And we work with them to get to their goals. I think in a weird way, this is going to probably sound strange, but as an architect, it's not about the projects for us. It's more about the relationships that we have with people, right? And if we keep a good relationship and a good rapport, the projects end up being beautiful, right? In a weird way. So it's the hands-on relationship, I think, that
Right, right.
that results in some beautiful work.
Yeah, I was looking at your website, and a lot of it talks about your interaction with your staff members, which I was pretty impressed with.
Yeah, yeah. It's we have each of our seats, so we usually float just below 50 people for a reason. We want to stay very agile and boutique in our approach. That said, a lot of our clients, like some of that I've already mentioned, they're very big organizations, very well known international companies that have honestly entrusted us with some great responsibility to design and build their new spaces, whether it be a building or an interior. It's pretty humbling, I think, to work with some of our clients. And again, like I said, it's for us, it's about the relationships that we have with the client, with the leadership on the client side. And similarly for us, each of our seats here is a very high value seat, and everybody that sits in one of our seats are now entrusted to protect that relationship, right? To really understand the client, work with them, invest themselves in the client and the client's aspirations. So we set out to really create a family feel, a family of professionals, but a family nonetheless, where everybody can be proud of what they contribute. Everybody can learn from somebody else, me included, learning from them, and vice versa. It's never a one-way street.
Right.
And I think in doing that, people are much more motivated. So in the end, they're self-motivated, I would say. They want to do well. They want to work together as a team, and they want to work with the clients and become better at what they do. They want to be better architects. They want to be better designers. And I think as a result, that if we've had success, I think our success lays in that, in our people, and our ability to create great teams. The end result is really great designs. And you said you've been on the website, and each one of those designs comes out of a deep conversation and understanding with the clients, and they're all part of that, all of our folks. So,
Right.
yeah, we're
I
very
know
proud of
when
them.
my interactions with your company, they were all extremely nice to me. I mean, nice, helpful, fast. It was pretty impressive.
Thanks, Leo. That's great.
Uh, so, what was your first job ever? When did you get your who gave you your first paycheck?
So my first job was I was actually so I was an intern for a company. It was a long time ago. The company actually doesn't exist in the name anymore, but it was 1989. I was an intern. I was still a student at Syracuse University. And I did have an ability to draw, so I became the renderer. That was my one skill that I could use to contribute, to these big efforts. I wasn't experienced enough yet to do sets of drawings or be out on the project site, directing or answering questions to a general contractor or a electrician or whoever. So my contribution was rendering, but I did get to design some pretty cool projects. And there was one where the firm was so busy with other things that they didn't have somebody to design a project. And the project was for a law firm called Grubman, Endersky, Schindler, and Flax. And Grubman, if you remember, subsequent years, his daughter in the Hamptons drove into a tree or something like that.
I
Remember
remember
that?
that. Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
that was the firm. So that was her father, and they were entertainment lawyers. So they would work directly with people like Madonna and Billy Joel and Bruce Springsteen. And it was really their law offices. So while they were sort of in this rock and roll-esque type of business, their office, they wanted it to be almost like a country club, like a high-end country club, like columns, mahogany, wood, big offices, wood paneling everywhere. And no one else was available to design it at the time. So the project manager said, Neil, can you just take a shot at it? And I did. And in the end, I came up with a design that they ended up approving. They liked it a lot. And it was built in Carnegie Hall Tower, which is right next to Carnegie Hall. And to my knowledge, I think it still exists. I think it's still there. So that's 30 something years ago, 32 years ago, something like that. That was my first big project.
What was your biggest, and I don't even know if you want to say, what was your biggest disaster and how did you recover from it?
It's funny. I never
If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay.
No, I will. I never really had any kind of major disaster, luckily, in terms of it. And some of it too is because you do work with teams, right? So even though I might have been at the beginning the draftsman, or the roles in an architecture team is draftsman, job captain, project architect, project manager. You usually have some folks playing those roles as you go along, in addition to design staff that might be more focused on the interior fit outs of spaces, finishes, materials, furniture. And I remember one of the drawing sets that I did, I had designed a railing, and it was for a company called Mattel Gesellschaft. It was a German metal fabrication company, I guess, or a metal company. I'm actually not quite sure exactly what they did. But so metal had to have a big role in the project. So there was metal detailing everywhere. And because it was the early 90s, you couldn't have enough, kind of like turns and corners and details. So I designed a railing with metal, sort of along the rail. We had these brackets that came out that I designed, and they were these cool triangles were very cool back in the 90s, right? So we did these triangle supports. Anyway, I didn't have eased edges on them. And so when somebody would bring their hand, right, it was almost like the edge of a ski, it would cut your knuckle. So a few knuckles in, there was some angry notes about what was happening. So then we had to revise, and it was a simple solution. All of the edges just were eased and filed down. But
right.
Yeah, so not that it's a big fall from grace, I guess, but it was enough of a learning experience for me to know that you do have to pay attention to every detail, right. and the details do matter. So if you do the details well, ironically, my philosophy is that if you design something really, really well, sometimes people won't notice. And in a weird way, that's what you want, because if people are in a space or a building or anything that we do, and everything just feels right, like, of course, that's how it would come together, is the sort of sensation you get. Then you've done a nice job, and it's nice to be part of things like that. But have been, certainly learning experiences along the way. But good architectural teams have people that have experience mentoring people that are still acquiring their own wisdom, right, and their own experience as you go. So generally, to have a real big mistake in architecture is pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
So I remember you guys telling me one thing in regards to country clubs, because there's so many committees and boards and people involved, you tend to get a hodgepodge of ideas
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
design of a country club. Like the locker room will be one design, the grill room will be another design, the dining room will be another design. So what's your remedy for that? Or is there a remedy for that?
You have to tear it down and do it all in it. Well, but it's a strange thing, right? Because a country club, it is made up of members. I think members are always looking for some improvement over time, and there's generally a budget allocation for that, whether it's redoing the sand traps, or it's putting down a new cart path, or improving, like in the case of Lost City, was one of the project pieces was to improve the locker room and the showers, for example. So you have these, they're big capital investments for sure, but they're in parcels, right? Because now you're operating. So you'll see, oftentimes I notice in the clubhouse, at an older course, you'll have the original clubhouse, but you can see, or I can see anyway, you can see where there was an addition and then another addition, or a new wing, or a new building. And, things kind of just get kind of smushed together. Somehow, weirdly enough, it all does work, but it's not a holistic approach as if you were to build a brand new clubhouse. There was a course near Lost City that we went to take a look at. In fact, we were able to rehab the lockers that they were getting rid of. Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
I can't remember the name of that. It's a
But
real
they were
high end club.
very high end
Extremely
club,
high end.
and they had a beautiful, what I think we all agreed was a very nice clubhouse. But their intent was to tear that down while they were building, and we walked through the new clubhouse. They had a new clubhouse being built, which I'm sure is complete by now, and it's
Right.
no doubt beautiful. But it was much bigger, much nicer, much more opulent. So in that case, they made, I think, probably the right decision, in that were going to just build a whole new clubhouse and then tear down the old one and use that probably for parking, or for some logistic area. But more often than not, I do notice that with most golf clubs, the clubhouses are additions on top of additions. That get
Right.
added over time.
What I noticed when you guys helped us out at Lawrence, I mean at Lost City, you had like a theme, a color theme throughout the whole place. The on course restrooms, the furniture on the
Yeah.
driving range, everything blended in together as best you could, because we did have a budget to work with also.
Right, right. Well, it's important. I think whether it's a clubhouse or really, honestly, any project, you want to communicate something to your memberships, right? And you want to have the members have a certain experience when they get to the club, that they've worked really hard, most members, right, to get to where they are. They're finally at a point where they can enjoy a little bit, really selfishly for themselves. In some cases, it's a couple, so it's a husband and wife might be joining, and it becomes a very big social opportunity, I guess, for them to socialize with other people. But you're creating an environment that supports that, right? And there's an experience there where people want to feel a certain way, especially from the point of arrival, literally driving up. What's your experience on your approach, getting out of your car, walking into the building, right? What's the first thing you see, and how are you greeted, not just by a person, but by the actual architecture. I think it all
Right.
contributes to somebody's experience and appreciation. It's great for marketing for new membership too. So when you walk somebody through and they see, a beautifully designed and well thought out shower, restroom, locker rooms, dining area, outside dining areas, all in support of, hopefully an equivalent spectacular golf course that's well maintained. I think that all works together to make a special place, whatever the golf club might be, wherever it might be. And you see that at some historic clubs like Wingfoot, for example. You on your approach to that clubhouse, and if you're a golfer at all, you're in the one of the most, notable golf courses. But when you see the clubhouse for the first time and you enter into it and you see the history of it and you can literally feel it. And there's a lot of stonework, there's a lot of deep colors, there's a lot of sort of warm lighting when you're inside. All of that contributes without you realizing it
Right.
to your being impressed as that's to where you are. And the clubhouse becomes the anchor generally for the
Right.
whole course. The course kind of spirals out away from that. Typically your first hole is right near the clubhouse. Your 18th hole, typically right next to the clubhouse. On courses or tracks that come back and forth, sometimes the ninth and 10th holes are also near the clubhouse. So it becomes a very pivotal element to a golf course design, the clubhouse typically.
So in your travels, what's the best clubhouse you've ever been in?
I think is it Atlantic out in East Hampton is a very impressive to me, a very impressive clubhouse. There was another one
why is
also.
that? Why
It
is
just I think
Atlantic?
that one's one of the older clubhouses. I'm pretty sure it was
No, I think it's
constructed
pretty
in
new.
that one. I know I think it's Atlantic. Maybe I'm getting the wrong club, but it was an older club.
Shinnecock. I was going to ask you about what you thought of Shinnecock's clubhouse.
You know what? You're right, and I think Shinnecock is really just a spectacular. When you're there and you have almost this sort of
It's on
farm
top,
type architecture,
right?
sort of a plantation style building
I think the
on
guy's
top
name
of a
was.
hill.
I think his name was Sanford White or Stanford White.
Stanford White. So if it was Stanford White, is a very famous architect. He's done very his body of work from the late 1800s into I think the early 1900s. He has some very notable buildings around Manhattan too, but also I didn't know that about Shinnecock, but now that you say it, definitely has that styling. So yes, that
So
probably is true.
there's a story about Shinnecock. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I think it is. There's no heat and no air conditioning in Shinnecock. They have
Is that right?
they have fireplaces and they open the windows, So one of the members is playing there in April and it's pretty cold out and he's taking a shower and he gets out of the shower, he's freezing, right? So he's upset and he calls the club president, this is an outrage and there should be heat in this building. And the club president says, all of us are down in Florida right now. I really don't want to hear what you have to say.
Well said.
Uh,
Yeah, well said. I did play Sagaponic. No, I'm sorry. What's next to Shinnecock? There's a
there's the National Golf
Sabonic. I'm
Links,
sorry,
Sabonic.
Sabonic.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't
So
been there. I heard it's tremendous.
it's really and just well designed. The clubhouse is beautiful. It's new in that case, but it has a feel of being vintage. But the whole experience there, I happen to know the developer there. His name is Michael Pascucci. Wonderful man, very charitable. He does a lot for the Catholic Church and Catholic Faith Network, which is another one of our clients. And I'm actually on the board of directors for Catholic Faith Network, and was able to meet him through that. And he offered to have myself play along with one of my partners, Gabe.
Nice.
My partner Gabe, and we went out. We just had a really great day. But what a course! The clubhouse is beautiful, and like I said, it's pivotal. right? It anchors everything, your point of arrival, your experience. The staff were great. Sitting down for lunch, overlooking the water, it was just really impressive. And then on top of that, now you play golf with a caddy, very expert, really walking you through shots that you should try to make, where you want to bail out if you have to get up and down. And then you return back to that clubhouse. The entire experience was just, first rate. I mean, just really a wonderful place.
Nice. So the other thing that caught my attention one time, I think I gave you a pointer or something on how to a sand shot or something.
Yes, you did. I
And
still
then
use that.
and then you said, well, they taught me that in the golf school. And you changed my perspective on things. I said, Neil, you're better off just taking private lessons, forget those golf schools, And you said, Leo, I don't have the time. In this golf school, I get a week of focused attention and it helps me a lot because I'm a hardworking person. I don't have time to be practicing and taking private lessons all the time. So expound on that a little bit if you could.
Yeah, I've done a few of them now. They're golf clinics essentially. You can sign up usually for a 3-day clinic, and it's not that you're just swinging all day long, but you're with teaching professionals, which I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think are a little bit different than playing professionals because they're really looking at the mechanics of the swing, but also trying to infuse into that techniques, athleticism also, which for me was I was almost overly technical in my swing, if you remember. And
Right.
I needed to become more fluid and more
Right. Very
athletic,
good.
honestly. But I really enjoyed them because they start off where they just watch you kind of on the range, and there's usually a couple of professionals walking back and forth, and you start to almost ask yourself, like, okay, is this it? This is do I get any pointers? But they call you in to video you and to watch your swing from different angles, and they start to break it down, and they build back upon what you have already, and they take you to other levels, and they work on everything from your long game to your short game, chipping, pitching, out of the sand, putting, and for a novice golfer like myself, that's invaluable, I think, because I think, a beginner golfer, you're always wondering and thinking about, what should I be doing, and you're not just trusting your swing. There's just too many questions going on in your mind. And I think just by going to that and understanding at the end of an academy, here is what you should be thinking about. Here's your setup. What you should take out of the way. So right from the beginning, you take 1, 2 practice swings. That's it. Just get the feel down, but look at your alignment. Pick a point 2 feet in front of the ball to make sure that your alignment is good. And then when you address the ball, now you're confident that you're aimed correctly. There's no question about if you're aimed correctly or not. Then you can trust your swing a little bit more. And then similarly, trusting your swing. How do you take your club away? What's your body doing? How do you shift your weight to your left side? In my case, I'm a righty. So it's all of that. Those questions that a beginning golfer has in their mind are now fewer, right? So you're more confident, you're more target focused, right? And you're building a repeatable swing that can take you through the game, and that's why I like that. I think it's immersive. Again, it's 3 days of doing everything. There was a 3-day one, which was Dave Pell's clinic, which was all short game, 100 yards and in, which was really invaluable because you can have a bad drive, but you can recover from it. You can't recover from a bad chip,
Right,
or a
right, right.
bad sand or bunker shot. You just can't do it.
So is your game more fluid now, or you
It
still
is,
lean?
yeah. I hope you'd be proud of me. I think it is, and I'm more confident. I think, especially now having been at Wheatley Hills, the quality of the course, the way they maintain the property, it's just really first rate. So you can trust your putt. That you're, as long as your aim is right, you have a good chance of getting it close enough for a tap in, and maybe a chance that it'll drop if you have a 20-footer or something like that. And then if you're within 3 or 4 feet, you should know that you can make those putts. Your intent should always be to make those. So yeah, it's been good, very good.
So Wheatley Hills, the greens are really slick there too, right? And some pretty good slopes on them.
They can be, yeah. They're not extreme slopes, but but yeah, they do get pretty fast. I don't know what they would be on a stint meter, but they do get pretty fast. So you do have to be very conscious of your putting stroke and your feels. I guess to quote Tiger Woods, how you feel about a putt. I read a book from Dave Stockton called Unconscious Putting, which helped me tremendously because it brought it back to the basics. It's the same as if, I know we're on a Zoom meeting, but if I were to toss a tennis ball to you, you would catch it without thinking about it, right? And that's sort of the point. We might get in a car and drive somewhere and not really even remember how we got there, but because it's such a repetitive action that you just do it, right? So putting is the whole point of the book. Really was that putting should be just that. It's keep it simple, but feel it, look at it, and let your body tell you what to do, or allow your body to make the putt. Don't overthink it. Don't get into the mechanics too much, which so many of us do, right? So yeah.
So now that I'm talking to an architect, I'd like your opinion. What do you think of them on this golf ball debate, and bringing it back so it doesn't fly as far? What's your opinion?
I need all the distance I can get.
Okay, so that's the
So
side you okay.
if I'm getting a few extra yards on a golf ball today, I'd like to keep that if possible, especially
Right.
as I get
Okay.
older. I want to, I'm going to be losing yards. Maybe it makes a difference for the modern players, the golf professionals. Maybe will it really matter for guys like me? Who knows, but I don't know. I think that somehow the game hasn't gotten easier for the golfing professionals, like the Rory McIlroys or any of the golf professionals now. I don't know that it's gotten easier for them. It's a challenge to win, and it's a challenge to beat your competitors. So I think you always have, the big equalizer is the field, right? So the field of players that you're competing
So,
against. So I don't know.
so I tend to look at it from a general manager's point of view. We had to renovate our golf course, and part of the renovation was we had to make the holes longer.
Right.
And there's only so much real estate out there where you can't make them any longer in some cases.
True. That is true. Yep.
And then the driving range, we had I think it was a 250-yard driving range. Now at Lost City they have, I think it's almost 400-yard driving range, and they're in the process. At some point they'll be putting nets up also because they can't contain the golf balls. But that's the way I look at it. It's a lot of money involved to have
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
balls
Yeah.
flying
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's a good question, and probably your opinion on it would probably be more relevant or real than mine, only because for me, my drives, if I drive it well, on average, I'm probably at 250, maybe 260 or something, if I'm really driving it well. But if I'm really honest about it too, there's quite a few drives, if there's wind up or whatever, that's, in the 230 range or something like that, even with some roll. So, you know, having less yardage for me, not really appealing. But there are players at Wheatley, for example, that will hit it 300 yards or
Right,
more,
exactly.
and
There's a few
it's
of them
pretty
out there.
impressive. It's a whole nother game from what I have, it's
Right,
very impressive. So from that perspective, yes, I'm not that guy. So for me, it
right.
doesn't seem to be, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was in Florida, I would play once a week with a couple of pros about my age, and one guy always we wanted to play from 6,000 yards. One guy always wanted to play from 6,500 yards, and me and the other guy wanted to play from 6,000. And the other guy had a good line. He said, "Look, we'll play from 6,000. If we get too far under par, we'll move back to 6,500." That kind of ended the debate.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that too. And sometimes you don't want to hit it, a mile anyway. I know, once a year or once a season, I typically try to play Bethpage Black. I live on Long Island. I'm close enough, and it's such a humbling experience. One round there, I shot an 83 from the whites, so we'll put it
Wow,
in
that's a great
perspective.
score. Great
But it was
score.
just I was working, right, and basically all that meant was I just never got in really bad trouble there. I think if you hit an errant shot at Bethpage on the black course, you're going to get a lie that you will not get anywhere else. Whether it's in the Jones Beach sand pits and it buries, or it's up under the lip of a sand trap, or if it's in the fescue and you might not even be able to find it, even if you're within a foot of it, you still can't find it. And to hack it out, it's your scores can very easily go pretty high. But I think the day that I shot that 83, I was just never in bad trouble. And my game plan, I remember that day, was to play for bogey on every hole, no matter what hole it was. Even if it was a par three, there's a few par threes that it's tee box and green, and there's really not a lot of choice. You have to land it on the green. But for me, some of them with the wind up, you needed a driver to reach this. I forget which hole it is, the 16th hole maybe.
Right,
You
16's a
need
long one. Yeah.
you needed I need anyway. I needed a driver from the whites to get there because the wind was up, and just luck, honestly, more than any kind of skill I brought to the day. I landed the green, so okay, so that helped a lot. But in general, I would play it short. I laid up on even par fours. Where I could have gone for the green, I chose to lay it up in front and chip up. And I would, mostly make bogeys or maybe get away with a par once in a while. Um, but it was a good day, but it was big course management, I would say.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So Bethpage Black is my favorite golf course in the world. What's yours?
I have to say, I think Pebble Beach. I think Pebble
I've never
Beach,
played Pebble Beach.
it's probably, it might be one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Honestly, any of the holes that you're near the water are amazing, and it's a playable course. I think somebody of your ability, you would do very very well there. Low 80s for sure. Maybe on a normal, if you played from the whites, maybe even break 80. Honestly, because I don't know that it's as long as you can put it where you need to or close to that, you could probably score fairly well there. It's when the wind is up though that everything changes, right? So I played it one day when it was windy and there was a marine fog layer coming in, and that was a difficult day. But another day was postcard. It was just blue skies, just it was golf nirvana. I just this is it. This was
Right,
heaven. If I die, that would be the loop that I keep playing.
right.
So it's really really wonderful place, beautiful.
That was Jack Nicklaus's selection also, by the way. If he had one course to play, it would be Pebble Beach.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a few holes they're great holes, but they're more average. Those are the holes that are sort of back on the property towards they're as far away from the water as you can get. And they're more normal, I would say. They have their own challenges, but they're not the spectacular holes that you're used to seeing, those unbelievable shots from, Tiger Woods or you know, uh Jordan Spieth or anything. There's the water holes, especially that par three, which but both times I played there, I did land that green, which was exciting. The par three along the water,
Right, right,
very
right,
cool. Yeah.
right. So Roseanne Politano, she's an employee at, or was an employee at the Lawrence Yacht and Country Club. She's now retired. I thought she was a great employee. Describe Roseanne in your words. What made her a great employee? Because you were a member there when Roseanne worked there.
It's funny. I know I've said family a lot, but she felt like a family member to me. She cared about what she did. She wasn't too worried about being overly polished or what have you. She was just a real person, a really wonderful, good person. And I enjoyed being around her, working with her, especially as we're building back the clubhouse too. And just, I think sometimes it's the people at a club, or really, any organization, it comes down to your people. What I always loved about Roseanne, I loved about you, I loved about all of the staff were that, you as a leader, Leo, I think you really built an environment for people to be successful. And when they were successful, I knew you were behind that, but you never boasted about it or anything. You were actually happy for them. And I think that's what made Lawrence so special. That's why for me it changed, honestly, after you had left. Um, it's what makes Wheatley Hill so special for me now. To see they have the leadership there, which is led a lot by the membership, but the staff that work there are probably some of the best people ever. I mean, everybody loves their job. They love the work that they do. They love working with all of the membership, and they even have a day there where the members become the staff, where the staff have a day out on the course,
Right.
and members are working behind at the bar. The members are the caddies, and they just allow all of the staff that work there to have a good time. So I think it's a real nice two-way street where there's such an appreciation from the members of the staff, but you can feel that the staff also greatly
I'm
appreciate the
just thinking
membership.
now, Roseanne probably was the leader of the Lawrence Yacht and Country Club. How she went, that's how our club went, because she set the tone.
She did, yeah. And after your departure from the club, I always gravitated towards her rather than your predecessor. And when she left, and she kind of slipped away. She didn't leave with any big retirement party, which I thought was disappointing.
Right.
She just kind of wrapped it up and then was gone. And I still feel bad about that because I would love to have done something to really just to celebrate her and thank her for
Well,
all of
what
her
a point
effort.
I'm trying to make is she was the unofficial leader at Lawrence, and then when I worked at Lost City, we had a dishwasher named Matthew. He was the leader of Lost City, and the guy was our
Yeah,
dishwasher.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he set the attitude for the whole place because he was just a good guy, upbeat, and you didn't want to be in a bad mood around Matthew because he was a good guy.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's you don't have to be the boss to set the tone of some of these places.
No, and that's yeah, very. I believe that what you just said. I think that's a very true statement. I think to you don't need to be, to your point, you don't need to be um, in the position with a title to be a leader. The title doesn't give you leadership skills, for example. I think leadership skills are either inherent in you, maybe part of your upbringing. Some of it can be learned, I think, but you do need that certain DNA, I think, to be a natural leader, a mentor, to have the confidence in what your skills are, but also to recognize what you're not good at, and be okay with that, and find somebody else that might be better at you at something, knowing that together you can achieve better things, bigger things than you could as just your own person. And I think Roseanne had a lot of that. I think she was a natural she had a magnetic personality. Everybody deferred to her, came to her. So I think, to her credit, I think she was a natural leader. I don't know that she would ever say that about herself,
She wouldn't.
which
She wouldn't.
interestingly enough, I think, some of the greatest leaders never say that, they're leaders. They never say that.
Right.
You'll often hear them say, I was fortunate. I was a privilege. It was an honor to do something, to work with somebody, to be around, um, they look at the world, I think, from a slightly different perspective.
So you've talked about people and relationships a lot. We just talked about Roseanne and Matthew. So if you were going to advise a 21-year-old getting into the club business, what would you tell them to work on?
I think being passionate, I think, I see it in my own business, but I think in terms of being in the club business, be passionate, about what you do, especially if you have skills that, I certainly aspire to, but no, realistically, I'm never going pro, Leo. But if you have a golf professional that really does enjoy the game, that really loves it, it's their passion, right? And that they just love being around golf, playing golf, teaching golf, to really let that out, because I think people recognize
Interesting.
passion in people,
Interesting.
and that passion is what often can translate and make a certain passionate person a leader in their own rights. In their own comfort zone and their own skills, they become a leader. So I think a young person that's in their 20s that are getting into the golf industry, which is I know it to be a very tough industry, right? There's a lot of people that love golf, but there's only going to be so many, or such a small percentage of people that can make a living or be successful with it. But I think a lot of the success that I've seen is based in somebody's passion for what they do. If they're really passionate about it, they love what they do, people are going to want to be around those people. They're going to want to see that person with that passion be successful and grow and their skills and their abilities, and just want them around generally. And when you have people like that are magnetic in their personality, and based in, again, my opinion, but in their passion, I think that's probably the ingredients for success for anybody.
So you just reminded me of a story. You and I went out to dinner with Michael Hebron and Todd LaCrone,
Yeah.
and Michael Hebron's in his mid 80s, and he announces he just signed another 10-year contract with the club that he's working at, and he gave it a fist pump, and he gave it a fist pump like he was a 21-year-old kid, like he was excited about getting this new contract.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a guy, the passion was shining through, he was excited about a new contract.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember that dinner very well because his passion came through. He actually he was so passionate about golf, the swing, the grip. Um, we were at dinner and I was getting a golf lesson at the dining table. I really was. And he gave me some pointers that I still have incorporated into my game. So yeah, special people, I tell you. You're lucky, Leo.
Yeah.
You surround yourself, your passion, by the way, for the game, for leadership. And I know you look for leadership in a lot of different places. And you've told me stories of uh, people, Navy SEALs, for example, and podcasts you follow. I think those skills are, you can commute those skills or lessons from those skills in leadership to really whatever it is you choose to do, whatever you're passionate about.
So in closing, thank you, Neil. Whether you're a good architect or a bad architect, the same thing for Vincent. Whether you're a you guys are really nice people, and it's always been a pleasure to be around the both of you. And best of luck in the future. I'm sure you're going to have tremendous luck in the future because you are a good guy, you know, and your firm's going to do well because of it.
Thank you, Leo. From my heart,
And
really. Thank you. That's very nice.
Unfortunately, you got to be in New York City today, or fortunately, and you're not on the golf course.
That's true. Well, it's too cold here anyway, so I needed a little bit of a rest. But I have to admit my desire to be on a golf course is growing. So I might have to take a. I don't know if I'll come to Thailand, but I'll definitely go to Florida at least.
All right, Neil, thanks again for giving us your time, because I know you are a busy person and your time is valuable, but thank you. Until the next time I see you, thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor to be with you today, Leo. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
We'll be talking. Thanks, Neil.